When you talk about luxury brands, their flagship vehicle is supposed to be the pinnacle of what they have to offer. In fact, you can't even talk about the segment without mentioning the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. It has dominated the scene in both sales and owner loyalty, with Mercedes moving about 15,000 S-Classes in America last year. In contrast, Audi only did about 1,600 A8s in the US during that same time period. So to address slow sales, Audi is introducing a completely new fourth generation A8 for 2019. It rides on an all-new architecture. It sports an all-new 3-liter turbocharged V6 with a 48-volt mild hybrid powertrain. And Audi claims this version is the most comfortable, most luxurious, and most technologically advanced A8 they've ever produced. So the big question I want answered, does this new A8 have what it takes to steal away some sales from the Mercedes-Benz S-Class? That's what we're here to find out. So with any flagship sedan, the design is very important. It's supposed to stand out. It's supposed to let everybody know that you've made your arrival. And this is where I have an issue with the all-new A8 because the design is a little bit too bland. It's a little bit too plain Jane for me. It was supposed to be based off of the very stunning Prologue concept they showed a couple years ago. And you can see with the production version of the A8, I had trouble distinguishing it as the new version. The front fascia is dominated by the corporate single frame grille, which does expand the entire front end of the car, which connects the upper and the lower tiers. I just don't know if it's distinctive enough. I mean, it's got some chrome slats that kind of make it stand out compared to the black exterior, but I just think that some other competitors have a look that looks a little bit more distinctive and stand outish. Now you can see with any other full-size luxury sedan or Audi, you've got full LED headlights, which are standard. However, you will take note that Audi offers a laser headlight in other markets, where in the US, the full laser headlights are just not passing the regulatory inspections yet. So we get kind of like a dumbed down version. You do have these adaptive LED headlights with LED low and high beams. You have LED daytime running lights. And then down here, no fog lights. Those are actually the sensor for the adaptive cruise control. Now, speaking of which, this car was supposed to debut with their traffic jam pilot, which was a level 3 autonomy, the first ever level 3 autonomy. But again, it's not coming to America because of the US regulatory people who aren't allowing it to happen just yet. So this car is not launching with their level 3 autonomy. Now, the new A8 is riding on a modified version of the MLB platform that Audi uses on all their other products. I've shown you the MLB platform before, and because it's on an all-new platform, Audi was able to stretch the length of this vehicle. Now remember, the A8 is available in 2 different lengths in other parts of the world. You've got the regular A8 and the A8L, which is the only version coming to America. The L is definitely the longer one, and it's the one that it needs to be here in America to compete with the competitors. Its wheelbase is now at 123.1 inches long, about 0.3 inches longer than the previous generation, and its overall length at around 207.8 inches long. This is slightly longer than the Mercedes-Benz S-Class and the Lexus LS, but the BMW 7 Series is longer still. Now, the wheel sizes, Audi offers a choice between like a 19-inch wheel all the way up to a 21-inch wheel. These are the 20-inch wheels you can see with multiple spokes and a gray finish. They're not my particular cup of tea. They're wrapped in 265 with series tires all around in Goodyear all seasons that my particular tester has. Overall, the wheels, depending on what you like, I prefer a simpler 5-spoke design. Now, looking at the rest of the profile of the new A8, you can see it has a very traditional sedan shape. If you guys are looking for a swoopy coupe, Audi will happily point you over to the A7, which is again an all-new design. You can see a panoramic sunroof is standard equipment on this A8. It is a fairly large panoramic sunroof, lets in a good amount of light. The hard lines on this car are kind of my issue because it looks a little bit too plain. I would have preferred something that had a little bit more of a swooping character to it to give this car a little bit more of a distinctive profile as opposed to the conservative look. Some of you, again, may like that conservative design. Now, at the rear, you can see, I see some design hints of a Lincoln Continental. You've got these OLED tail lights, which are standard equipment on this particular one because it's the first edition model. The OLED tail lights kind of create a 3D effect. They kind of do a little light dance whenever you lock and unlock this vehicle because it'll flash the turn signals. The taillights, as you can see, are full length. They're connected by this chrome strip. You've got some A8 badges, a Quattro badge, the A8L badge. Again, this is the only way you can get an A8 in America. And overall, I think it looks equally conservative. You'll have to let me know in the comments below if you guys like the look of this car. You can see at the lower end of the fascia, there are fake exhaust tips. Audi has been guilty of that, but I'll let you guys hear what that new mild hybrid V6 sounds like real quick. And of course, because it's a mild hybrid, there's no traditional starter noise. It doesn't sound all that impressive. Remember, this is just an A8. You'll have to wait for the S8 or the RS8 if they ever come out with that, if you want more. Now, the trunk capacity of the A8 is an interesting area because Audi only rates the space at 12.5 cubic feet, which is damn tiny for this segment. That's like smaller trunk capacity than a lot of compact cars. But when you look at it, it doesn't look like 12.5 cubic feet. You can see there is a trunk pass-through. It is a fairly large trunk with a good opening, but compared to something like the Lexus LS, which has 16 cubic feet, Mercedes-Benz S-Class has around 15.5, and the BMW 7 Series, which has 18.7, the Audi's trunk is very small by the numbers, and Audi says the trunk is actually a little bit smaller versus last year's A8, which had 13.4 cubic feet of space. So the numbers are definitely strange. Underneath the floor here, you can see there is a temporary spare tire, so you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit. So the outside of the new A8 may not be much to look at, but it's not really the point of these big sedans. So let's move on to the interior and go over all the changes that Audi has made. I want to briefly talk about the key fob. Surprisingly, for a full-size luxury sedan, I expected the key to be a lot more impressive considering what BMW does, or even introduce like a phone key, but this key is slightly slimmer than all the other Audi keys. It's got some metal on it. It has some nice heft to it. So it's got the intelligent access key. As you approach the door handle, nothing fancy here with the door handles either. It's just a standard door handle with some chrome on it. I was expecting more like pop-out handles like everything else, or like where everyone else is kind of going to lock the door. Just touch your finger there. The mirrors will also electrically fold. You can turn that feature on and off if you'd like. Unlock it, just touch the back of the handle, and that will unlock the door for you. Now, I have to say the black-on-black combination that my tester is pretty boring, but again, if you guys like the black-on-black combination, then this is definitely your cup of tea. It doesn't have that warmth feeling that I was looking for in a full-size luxury sedan at a first glance. Again, you can get a different interior color choice, like a lighter beige, like a white interior or a brown interior. But the black on black definitely makes this look a little bit just austere and just a little bit, cold feeling for me. The door panels, you can see, have this really nice matte finish wood with the, the really exposed graining on the wood. It looks nice. It's got some real leather stitching on the doors. And the seats, these are the upgraded seats that you get with the executive package for $4,000. They're a 22-way seat. They're also heated and cooled, and they have a massage function with different levels. So I'll go over that when we get into the interior. And the steering wheel, as you can see, I actually like the design of the steering wheel. This is not a sporty car, and the steering wheel kind of shows that. This is more of a comfort, luxury boulevard cruiser, and this is what a lot of you may prefer in a luxury sedan. Now, getting into the inside, this car has an adjustable air suspension. And I kind of have the suspension in its normal setting, and it kind of gives you a normal sedan step-in height. And then when you shut the door, it sounds really solid when it shuts. And in case you guys are too lazy to actually shut the doors very, hard, just kind of click the door, and it has soft closing doors. So that's what you expect. And I also noticed with the door handle here, if you want to open it, you don't need to pull this very hard. You just literally just kind of touch it, barely touch it, and the door will, pop open because it's hydraulically assisted. Now, when you want to start the vehicle up, you can see there's 3 screens in here, and the start-stop button is down here. So put your foot on the brake and push this button here to fire up the engine. And even though this car is a mild hybrid kind of vehicle, you basically have a traditional engine starter sound here, which I actually really liked. You can see the dash vents. They actually have a cover that opened up to reveal the dash vents, so I was really pleased to see a feature like that. The engine, when you go into its dynamic mode selector here, we'll go into sport, it does make the engine sound a little bit nicer, or a little bit louder. Still, you don't really hear much. Remember, this car is not the S8. It's supposed to be a luxury boulevard cruiser. Now, where do we begin with the interior of this car? Now, the first thing you're going to notice, it's got 3 screens. You got the 12-inch virtual cockpit display. You have a 10.3-inch new MMI display over here that's now a touchpad, and it also introduces wireless Apple CarPlay, which is, I believe, the first time I'm seeing this in an Audi. Down here, you have an 8-inch touchscreen as well. This mostly controls your climate control settings. You can open and close the rear seat vents, your garage door opener. You can turn off the top screen over here. So the 2 screens are independent. I was really surprised that Audi went with a touchscreen, considering the MMI had a touchpad and it wasn't a touchscreen. So they kind of had to, because I think the industry has realized that touchscreens, or at least having the choice of a touchscreen or a command wheel, is probably the way to go. In terms of the interior materials, this is their flagship sedan, so you expect really nice materials. And the A8 kind of doesn't disappoint, but it just doesn't look as special in this car as you get in a Mercedes or a Volvo. You can see the dash here is all genuine stitching here. It's very soft and cushy leather. You have real metal trim. You have too much piano black plastic. I think that's my issue with this interior. I don't like all the smudges that you get with this piano black plastic. Audi includes this little cleaning cloth over here. You're going to be using this all the time to wipe off all the damn smudges that you get on this interior. You can see it's got that Quattro badge. The door panels, if you guys look over here, has more of that nice wood. It's that genuine leather, more of that stupid piano black plastic trim, metal accented door handles here. There's a cool little storage area right here where your elbow would rest for the armrest. It's all real stitched, of course. Down here, it is slightly padded, but it could be leather stitched. I think you can option in a full leather interior package where they will wrap this bottom portion of the door panel in leather. You can open up your trunk over there. The window switches have a nice metal tactile feel. It's power up and down for all 4 windows. Very much expected that. You can even control the individual child locks on each door from the driver's side, which is really cool. Your mirror controls are over here. Headlight controls are over here. It's basically just touch over here. It'll cycle between auto, completely automatic, or off, or side marker lights, whatever. You actually have to push the button slightly until you hear that click. You can see you also have front cornering lights and rear fog lights. If you want to close this vent, this is pretty cool. Touch right there. The air will actually stop flowing, and then if you keep pushing the off button here, it should close that vent. After a second, there it goes. It actually starts to close the vent, and it actually powers the wood covering over the vent. So again, if you'd like the airflow to come back, just touch the button again over here. So touch the airflow button, and you can see it's a little bit slow, but it's all just very, luxury smooth. That's the whole purpose of this car. The steering wheel, obviously, it's going to be a tilt and telescoping adjustment, which also it moves in a very slow motion kind of fashion. You have paddle shifters on the wheel, you have real metal trim. This button here, of course, all the steering wheel buttons basically control either the MMI interface here, or you can also control the virtual cockpit display. This is kind of their next generation virtual cockpit display. It looks a little bit different than the other Audis. I mean, you can see there, you can still put the GPS up there. You can make the gauges larger. I'm noticing it moves a lot faster. The graphics look a little bit clearer, especially when you look at the all black screen. It just looks a little bit more, like a OLED TV as opposed to an LED TV, or like an iPhone 10X versus like a regular iPhone 8 or something like that. The screen just looks a little bit clearer. So Audi's made some updates to the virtual cockpit. I really like this. You can customize the way this looks. This is, one of the best in the industry. Mercedes and BMW have been copying virtual cockpit over the years with their newer systems. Now, over here on the center stack display, you can see these 2 screens. They're intimidating at first, but once you get used to them, I think they're actually relatively intuitive and easy to use. I mean, most of the times I found myself touching the upper part of the screen, because here's the home screen. You can see you've got, your usual apps. It'll read text messages to you. You've got the wireless Apple CarPlay, which you can access through there. The one thing about the screen that's interesting is if I just kind of touch it, just barely touch it, you can see it shows a little graphic of the, the icons moving. You have to actually physically touch it and push it in until it clicks, and it gives you kind of that haptic feedback. I kind of like that. So in case you're kind of just scrolling around and you didn't mean to touch something, for example, if I'm trying to just scroll between the screens, I have to push in a little bit to let the system confirm that I wanted to go for that individual button. You can see going to your vehicle here, you can change all these different settings. The light and visibility, of course, this car allows you to change the interior color lighting, which looks beautiful at night. You can see Audi even shows you a representation of how it looks. I actually really like the red impulse color. I think it goes with the whole aspect of this car. Going over here to the seats, you can see this car does come with massaging seats. To get to the massage seats, it's right here, or you can just push the button that's on the seat. But you can see I can even control the seats on the passenger side. I can control different ways of adjustability for the bolsters. And if I want, I can just get a relaxation massage here, change the intensity out. This is very nice. This is pretty much as good as what you're going to get from Mercedes, BMW, Volvo. So you kind of expect that in an Audi product. Now, the one thing that is also very impressive about the car is the 360 camera system. Obviously, you've got 4 cameras showing everything around the car. If I push this 3D button here, check this out. It's got a 3D virtual representation of the car and what's around it. Although the wheels aren't really matching what actually comes on the car. This is beautiful. This is what you expect when you buy a car that has a 6-figure price tag like this. You can also basically change the views here while you're trying to park this massive car. So this is all very impressive. This is exactly why I get so spoiled when I drive a luxury brand, because the camera quality resolution on mainstream cars just isn't up to par. This is really what I would like to see the industry kind of head, and it's exactly why Audi is usually at the forefront of driver assistance and, of course, their infotainment system technology. Now, in terms of the driver assistance, you can see there's a dedicated button here where you can kind of just push this and get to that. Individual or basic allows you to change, or basic is basically the least amount of driver assistance. You can also customize what you want this thing to do. I mean, obviously you've got, blind zone assist. You also have intersect assist. You have exit warning assist. That's if a car is coming and it senses you're about to open the door, it'll yell at you not to do that. Intersection assist is where if you're turning left and there's an oncoming car, the car will actually brake for you to keep from crashing into that car. So again, overwhelming amounts of technology, but the one thing that's missing is level 3 autonomy. Audi doesn't put level 3 autonomy on this car because it's not available on the US cars yet because of US regulators. This car just has their Audi traffic jam assistance, but it's more of the basic form. It doesn't even have active lane change assist, which really kind of bugged me. Now down here you can see this is where all your shortcut presets would be for your radio controls. You can kind of push that button there, it'll open and close the rear seat sunshade, which is nice. You can also turn off the heads-up display, which shows a relatively good amount of information, although the screen itself is a little bit small. I've seen much larger screens on some competitor vehicles. You can also turn off the lane departure assist over there, the lane keep assist, or you can also go over here and change a couple of functions, accessing your heated seat controls or your heated steering wheel controls. This is the fragrance ionizer, where this car will kind of spray off a little mild either winter or summer scent, or you can also control the rear seat controls over there. Because this car has the executive rear seat package. I mean, I could spend hours going over this freaking infotainment system, so I need to kind of cut it short because there's just so much to show. The navigation system, you can see, this is next generation of the Google Earth display. Looks phenomenal. You can also put it here on the virtual cockpit screen if you'd like to have basically 2 navigation systems. So again, this is really damn cool. It shows even your live traffic. So this is one of the reasons why Audi does an incredible job. Now, the shifter here controls the 8-speed automatic transmission. You push this trigger here to go up into reverse, kick it back into drive, kick it over to the right for a sport mode. You can see Audi's drive mode selector is right here, where you can customize, or get out of that screen here. You can customize what drive mode you'd like this car to be in, and there's also an individual setting. This is also where you access the air suspension. It'll raise or lower the car depending on what drive mode you're in. Electronic parking brake over here. You've got these individual openings for the center console here. It's a little bit of a narrow, shallow center console. You can see I've already filled it up. It does have a wireless charging pad, 2 USB ports, an LED light there. There's LED lighting everywhere in this cabin. Surprised that the glove box door is just opened up traditionally. It's actually a pretty big glove compartment. You can see it goes in pretty deep. It's damp. It's lined with felt. Basically what I was expecting. The lid is also padded. The seats also are pretty comfortable. This is kind of like the upgraded Napa leather seats with the executive package. They're adjustable 22 ways. You can adjust how you want this to squeeze you. You can adjust this to make this come forward. You can adjust the thigh support on it. So many ways of adjustability. It's overwhelming. I had to spend a few hours with this car to even understand everything, but overall the interior will impress you with the tech in typical Audi fashion. I would like to see it in a different color to kind of add to the warmthness of this interior. It's just too austere and cold in this black interior, but overall Audi's done a really nice job here with this interior, and it's going to impress a lot of people who are looking for a flagship luxury sedan. So getting into the back seat of the all-new A8, this is where a lot of people who can afford a car like this is probably going to spend some of their time, especially if you have a driver. The rear seat area of the A8 has just been markedly improved over the previous generation. Audi definitely stretched the wheelbase and gave you more space in the actual rear seat. There's a ton more legroom back here at 44.5 inches of legroom. I can easily stretch out back here at 5'7". That's actually 1.5 more inches of legroom back here than the previous generation, and you have a lot more legroom than the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the BMW 7 Series, and the Lexus LS. Now, in terms of coddling you with features, the A8 is definitely packed full of features. There's going to have a ton of luxury touches back here and adjustability and technology. Now, it's all going to start when you open up the rear center console over here. You can see there are rear seat controls that you're going to find. Of course, these are like a 15-way power rear seat back here where you can recline it, you can adjust it forward and back. You can push a button where the front seat would move forward. and it'll give you more space. This one here is missing like a executive package that has, you know, the massaging footrest, which is just insane. The seats back here are heated and ventilated, and they have the massage function on each individual side of the seat. Now the big centerpiece back here is this tablet that pops out that's part of the rear seat comfort and convenience package. It basically mimics the MMI interface that's in the front of the vehicle, where you have basically the same layout. You can control whatever you'd like to control from the front. From the back seats here, if you go to the seat, you can see, click on the massage. You can change your adjustability of the massage. You can change the intensity. You can basically give each individual seat on the side your own individual massage with the heated and cooled function. It's all very nice. This is probably why a lot of people who buy a car like this are going to just prefer to sit in the back seat. So underneath the massive hood of the new A8, you're actually going to find a powertrain that is completely new versus the previous generation model. Now, just like last year's model, you have a V6, which will be standard, and this is the only engine available at launch. It's a 3-liter V6, just like the previous generation. However, it's no longer supercharged. This is now a turbocharged V6. It's a single turbo V6, kind of similar to the powertrain that we find in the Audi SQ5 and S5. It is definitely a different motor in the fact that it has a 48-volt mild hybrid system that assists it, which apparently adds 9 horsepower when it's assisting the engine and 16 horsepower during energy recuperation. Now the numbers, 335 horsepower and 369 foot-pounds of torque. Now that is 2 more horsepower than the old V6, but about 25 more torque, which is realized at a much lower RPM, especially when you have the 48-volt system assisting the engine. It essentially replaces the starter and the alternator, so it allows for very quick startups. It's a mild hybrid system, even though Audi doesn't like to say that. Now it all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission with their company's patented quattro all-wheel drive as standard equipment. There's no front-wheel drive model. There's no dual clutch. Expect something different whenever you guys have the S8 model come to America in the next coming years. Now this is heavier than the previous generation at 4,700 pounds, and fuel economy, surprisingly, it's actually not better than the previous generation. This is rated at 19 in the city and 27 on the highway, which is odd considering all the mild hybrid tech. It actually gets the same combined rating at 22 mpg, but it's actually rated to get 2 mpg less than the old V6. Now, at 4,700 pounds, Audi says this should get to 60 in around 5.6 seconds, which is just fine performance. I expect the S8 model, of course, to quicken that significantly whenever it does come out, but you guys are very curious. Let's get this out on the road and see how it actually all performs. So I actually have never had a chance to drive Audi's flagship sedan, the A8. I've always had a soft spot for this car because it's kind of like the underdog. I mean, in the shadows of the, BMW 7 Series and the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the juggernaut, the A8 has always been trying to find its place in the segment. And Audi, they like to show off their luxury side through technology. So as their flagship sedan, it doesn't surprise me that they're debuting a lot of their first for their North American lineup. I mean, there are some features in this car that I wish were in the States. For example, we don't have the full level 3 autonomy in the States yet because of regulators, but Audi says that they'll software update the cars if you guys get their advanced driver assistance tech package, which this car has. We don't have their full matrix LED headlights with their full automatic high beams because US regulators and just the horribly old stupid laws that we have where you can't have high beams on all the time because it's against the law, whereas new car technology like this Audi, allows you to leave the high beams on all the time, which is great technology, safety technology for whenever you're driving at night. The vehicle itself has 24 sensors around this car, so take that, Tesla, and your 12 ultrasonic sensors. This has 24, so that's why it's able to support level 3 autonomy. But all of the driver assistance stuff aside, the self-driving, the tech, how does the A8 actually drive? So I put it into sport mode here. Let's put our foot down. This is the V6 turbo engine. A little soft. It's a little soft initially. It's almost like there's a little lag. I'm gonna try a brake torque here, but this thing moves. She hustles for a sedan that weighs almost 5,000 pounds. Turn off the stability control here. Try brake torquing it. Oh my God. The sense of speed that I'm getting in this car, as she's a boat. This thing's heavy and big feeling. The way this thing picks up speed for just the base engine is mighty impressive. I mean, 335 horsepower isn't much in today's world, but it feels like it's underrated. The 48-volt mild hybrid system is really only there to kind of assist empowering the electronics and for aiding the start-stop system in this car to be even smoother. It only provides like 9 horsepower as a boost to the gas engine, so you're going to be using the gas engine most of the time. This is not a Prius in the sense that it'll drive around on electric power alone. It doesn't have that ability. What it does have the ability to do is have imperceptible start-stop, to have a really trick air suspension where it can adjust the individual dampers much quicker than a hydraulic setup because it's electric now. And you know, Audis in general aren't typically known for being sporty, but the A8 actually does shrink in size when you start attacking some corners. My tester is missing the four-wheel steering system, but for a car that's this big at 203 inches long, or 208 inches long, I'm sorry, this thing really hustles. And the steering in sport mode actually provides a good amount of feedback. I'm surprised. It's actually got some good weight to it. And the 8-speed automatic is, you know, the typical ZF 8-speed. It's smooth. It's really refined. When you do want it to hustle, you put it into sport mode, it will, you know, bang off some shifts pretty well. It has these paddle shifters also, which are mounted to the wheel, that do a pretty good job. The engine itself doesn't have much in terms of sound, but the transmission will shift with some nice snicks. It'll like some nice burbles, small burbles from the exhaust. This is no Audi S8. I'm hoping Audi will eventually decide to bring the S8 to this country again. It picks up speed so effortlessly, and that's kind of what you expect with a full-size, you know, luxury sedan like this. You want everything to feel effortless. Now, of course, there is a V8 that's still coming. I would love to drive this thing with a V8. Honestly, if I was going to be spending, you know, the 6-figure price tag in this segment, I would still get the V8 because I think a V8 is important. It's all about the bragging rights. Now, of course, Audi's V8 has a mild hybrid system as well. It should have around 454 horsepower, something like that. But as it sits, the V6 is not a bad option if you guys are looking to be at a certain price point or you want to save gas, because this thing at 1927 mpg, it gets really good gas mileage. I've actually been averaging around 19.5 miles to the gallon, which again, that's not wonderful, but it's actually not bad for how big this vehicle is, how heavy it is, how often I was into the throttle. I mean, I'm sitting here right now getting a really wonderful massage. It's pretty much as good as the massages that, you know, Mercedes-Benz and Volvo has on their products. You also have massaging back seats. I mean, this is a car that you probably want to be driven around more, especially when you get that, you know, rear seat executive package. I'm kind of sad that I'm not sitting in the back. This one here is missing the massaging footrest and the 4-person seating, but I mean, driving the A8 is definitely no penalty box. So if you have to drive it, this is probably one of the sportier entries. It drives similarly to the Cadillac CT6 that I last drove, but it has a specialness that the Cadillac is kind of lacking. It feels, I want to say it feels a little bit of the same in terms of acceleration. Audi says this thing should get to 60 in around 5.6 seconds, which isn't bad, but I imagine the V8 model, whenever it does come out, should do it about a second quicker than this car. The visibility in the A8 also isn't bad. You just kind of have to get used to the long hood and the long rear deck, but you do have these big side mirrors with their Audi side assist, with their turn assist feature, where if you're going to make a left turn and there's oncoming traffic, the car will brake for you automatically. But let me put my foot down here one more time. Let's try another acceleration run. We'll turn off the stability control again, do a brake torque. And again, with Quattro all-wheel drive, this thing has no drama. It just takes off. There's no wheel spin. You know, it has the ability to vector the torque, you know, side to side. This is the real Quattro. It's not that Quattro Ultra that's, you know, on the base A4 that tries to decouples the rear axle to save fuel, and primarily it's front-wheel drive and whatnot. So this car checks all the boxes for me in terms of being a flagship on how it drives. It gets even decent gas mileage. The interior is, you know, full of tech. It doesn't have the kind of warmth, though, that I'm looking for that, you know, you get in a Mercedes or a Volvo. It kind of has a little bit of an austere, dark tone to it. I would have liked this car if it was probably a lighter color interior. The black on black that my tester is just isn't my cup of tea. But overall, very impressed with the way the A8 drives. This is how a flagship should be done, and it's just a shame that everybody in this segment is so brand loyal. I mean, Mercedes makes a wonderful full-size flagship. If you guys are so tired of, you know, seeing your neighbor's S-Class or your BMW 7 Series as part next to you, the A8 is definitely something that's worth a look. So driving the new A8 wouldn't be complete without showing you guys some of the driver assistance features in this car and also testing it out on the highway. As a car like this, you know, driving it on the highway is going to be probably where most people really drive the A8 because, you know, they're flagship luxury sedans. So I'm going to put it into the comfort setting here. This is going to actually raise up the air suspension slightly and put the dampers and the steering into a comfort setting, and you can feel instantly the steering gets a little bit lighter, and this car is so quiet. I mean, you're doing 65 miles an hour in here and it feels like you're going like 50 or 40. It feels like I'm going too slow because there's very little wind noise, very little road noise, basically no engine noise. Now, to turn on the driver assistance stuff, you can see the virtual cockpit display and the head-up display shows you something. So to turn on the adaptive cruise control, take this controller stalk, pull it toward you, and then hit the set button. Now, it'll show here adaptive cruise control assist, standard. I want to actually move the distance away and then flick the thing up to increase the speed for this car. Now, the car does have Audi's active lane keep assist, so it has like a curve control too, so it should be able to follow this curve here. As you can see, the system is sort of following the curve. It's not really doing it in a fashion that would make me feel more comfortable, but let's see if it'll do it again. Adaptive cruise assist. There's a lot of traffic out here, which is kind of the norm when you're driving around, you know, a city like this. So as soon as it sees the lanes, you can see it turns green to show you the lanes again. And it does do a very good job of keeping you centered in the lane, which is nice. Now, I want to see if this car has active lane change assist. So I'm going to actually... So actually, when you don't have your hand on the wheel, it'll start to yell at you because we don't have level 3 autonomy here in America yet. So I'm going to signal, or first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this slow-ass BMW. And when you put your foot down while it's on, it actually will say overridden instead of standard. The standard kind of confused me. I thought it meant it was like not on, like regular cruise control. So let's signal right here. And this car does not have active lane change assist, which surprised me. I mean, that's something Mercedes has, something Tesla's always had. But with the curve control assist, you can see it does follow curves. But I'm just really sad because Audi has a full level 3 system where you could drive completely hands-free and not be paying attention to the road up to about 37 miles per hour. So I could be on my phone on Instagram or talking to you guys in Europe or other parts of the world. Versus here in America, Audi doesn't let me do that because of regulations that are simply preventing the car from doing that. I think though that Audi should be including at least the active lane change assist. I kind of expect that, especially at this price point, at this level. But other than that, the driver assistance stuff is very good, but just know that this is a dumbed down version until we finally get the full level 3 that Audi has across Europe. So after spending a week with the all-new 4th generation Audi A8, as much as I wanted to rag about the somewhat bland exterior design, this car seriously spoiled me. It coddled me with that lovely interior, from the massaging seats to that perfume ventilation system that wafts that really nice smell into the cabin when you have the climate control system on, to just the overall feel. This meets my expectations of what I want a flagship luxury sedan to perform like. Audi really took a lot of pages from the Mercedes-Benz S-Class when they were designing this new A8, and it really shows in the overall feel. Now, while the A8 isn't the most sportiest to drive, I really like the ride quality from that new adaptive air suspension. The power from the V6 is very sufficient. The 48-volt mild hybrid system does make a slight difference in the real world. And really, I hope Audi follows it up with a V8 model, with an S8 model, and even an S-Line sport package, because I think the looks are just a little too bland, and that could be a deal breaker for some of you who are looking to purchase one of these vehicles. Now, speaking of which, the scary part about these big sedans is just how expensive they are. And I really usually don't have to take out the window sticker here to talk about the pricing of this car, but because it has so many options, I can't remember all of it, so forgive me while I pull this out. Now, this new A8 starts at $83,800. That's about $1,000 more than the previous generation model. Kind of a worthy upgrade considering everything they've improved this car with. That does make the A8 about $10,000 less expensive than a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, about $8,000 more expensive, however, than a Lexus LS, and about $15,000 more expensive if you guys are going to compare it to like a Kia K900 or a Genesis G90. Now, speaking of which, usually you don't buy a base model of these flagship sedans, so what does this have in terms of options? Well, It has about $20,000 worth of options. The most expensive one is the executive package that rolls in those 22-way massaging seats, the 360 camera, the head-up display, the heated steering wheel, the dual-pane acoustic brake-resistant glass. I even forgot to mention that earlier in the video. That's $4,100. This first edition package is about $3,900. It gives you the upgraded interior LED lighting, the Alcantara headliner, the extended leather all over the seats, the air quality system, and that fragrance ionizer that I loved so much, and the Matrix LED headlights and OLED taillights. That rear seat comfort package that I showed you guys in the rear seat, that's about $3,500. The driver assistant package is about $2,700, which again is missing the level 3 autonomy that you get across other A8s across the globe. The 20-inch wheels are about $1,200. The cold weather package is about $800. With destination, this car's total is about $101,995, which I know a 6-figure price tag, but if you're going to comparably equip a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, that's going to be about $20,000 more. Now, keep in mind, this one is missing a fair amount of options where you could push this car to be about 130 grand with everything, and that's before you even consider offering the V8 or picking the V8, or if Audi ever decides to come out with an S8 model. But with all that said, does the A8 have the ability to take away some sales from the new S-Class? I have a feeling it will. I just doubt that it's going to be able to actually meet the S-Class in terms of the yearly sales, where they do over 10,000 a year. But thankfully, Audi has been improving their sales ever since this new generation went on sale in October of 2018. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this all-new 2019 Audi A8L. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.